Welcome to Cutting Through the Noise. I'm your host, David Siegel. Each week I game the system to bring you new ideas for a brighter future. Today my guest is Maarten Van Doorn, a PhD student in philosophy, an active blogger, and a pillar of the Cutting Through the Noise community. Maarten, welcome to the show. We seem to be in a forest. Where are we and how did we get here?
Thanks for having me, David. We're in a forest in Malden, which is a tiny village in the south of the Netherlands, and which is actually where I'm from, where I was born, and where my childhood home still is.
Okay.
And for some reason or another, you're there as well.
So how did that happen?
How that happened is I saw David's article on what's likely true and what's likely not true, and how a lot of belief systems work, and which beliefs are more likely to be accurate and not. And I read the article and I was really impressed by it because it was very clear, and also because it had a lot of scientific references, so you can go and check the things for yourself.
Did you read the whole thing all the way?
No, I skipped some sections.
Okay, there we go.
But nevertheless, I was very impressed,
Okay.
and also very bewildered, because like, whoa, this is kind of like a rabbit hole I need to go down to. I need to check the papers and update my own beliefs, because it turns out I was wrong or ignorant about some issues.
Okay.
So I tweeted I could spend my whole summer researching this, and maybe I should just do that.
Okay.
And then David tweeted back saying that might actually be a good idea.
And 4 weeks later, here I am, staying in the bedroom of your brother in your childhood home, and we're walking in the forest, talking about reality. Now, let's understand your background a little bit.
Right. So I'm a PhD candidate in philosophy at the Central European University in Budapest. I'm not sure what I will do with the degree, but at least, as we know, education is mostly about signaling.
Right.
So I got that one covered.
Right. It's nice to have a PhD, especially if you can get it for the least possible amount of work.
Yeah. I hope my supervisor won't see this.
What kind of things would you like to focus on in the next, say, year or so as a member of our community?
I'd like to focus on education, if I have to name one thing.
Okay.
Because for one, that's basically the only field in a society in which I have any first-person experience.
Certainly not in common sense. And do you agree with me that education is broken? What does that mean to you?
The standard model is a bit like this. You're a student, you enter university, you have to make a lot of tests and answer them correctly. And then as a student, you think it's about the answers
and the grades?
And the grades,
Oh.
and that's it. And the second thing that's wrong with the attitude is that there is this attitude of first learning, and then you can participate in society, and you're done with learning. Like, you cannot believe how many people there are when they graduate college or finish university, like finally, I can stop reading and stop learning.
And they're totally useless. I've hired a lot of them.
Okay, we have to go left.
And then it's time to really start figuring out what life is about.
Yeah, and that's the second. So the attitude is the first thing. The attitude that we get trained into, right? So I think this is a systemic problem. It's not due to all of a sudden everyone who is now coming out of the education system being lazy or whatever.
Right, it didn't just happen.
Didn't just happen.
That's right.
But the second thing that's wrong, as David said, is that the type of knowledge that the knowledge itself we're getting is kind of useless, because, you know, almost everyone who's gone through college kind of knows this. It's not that I'm saying something new here. What happens is you have to read a lot of textbooks and then make a multiple choice exam.
Right.
And then if you've successfully done like 20 multiple choice exams, you get an undergrad degree.
Right.
And all of a sudden when you have completed these multiple choice tests about psychology textbooks, you're a good psychologist. There's very much a legitimate question of what you actually learn there.
You've written a good piece on how to learn from reading books. It's different from what most people do. So what do you recommend to people to learn? What's the point of books and what's the point of reading a book? How do you get the most out of it?
Yeah. So already when you ask the question, what's the point of reading a book? That's a great question, because that assumes reading a book is not somehow some virtuous end in itself that
Right.
you can then go and brag about
Right.
how many books you've read.
Right.
So the point, as I see it, is to update your view about the world, update your mental models on reality.
Right.
Which doesn't happen if you just read the text and don't go back into it.
Yeah. Right. You just close it and say, okay, I read that.
Yeah. So what you need to do to make that the thing you read transition into your long-term memory, because that's basically the jump you want to facilitate from your short-term working memory. I've just read that to your long-term memory. I know realities like this, and here are the arguments. Is you have to engage with it and recall it. So you have to do some repetition, which is boring, but I mean,
but it works.
it works.
Yeah.
What I'd recommend very shortly, if you just read a book that you like, you don't need extensive notes for reference, because if you do need those, it's a different story. After you finish your reading session, so let's say a chapter, put down the book and make a list of bullet points of things that stood out to you and that you want to remember, that you think are cool. So
do you have a notebook where you have all your notes for all books, or is it a couple pieces of paper per book, or how do you?
I use Evernote for that.
Evernote?
Yeah.
So you can look up all the books you've read in Evernote and see your notes.
The search function in Evernote is amazing. So if there's one kind of, I don't need to tag everything with topics, because I can just, if something like fundamental attribution error, I can just search that, and then it will come up in my summaries of the books.
Let's switch topics now and understand, because it really is an incredible piece on how to read books, and I'll put a link to it in the description. What do you think, Maarten? What do you think young people, you're how old?
I just turned 26.
Just turned 26. What do 26-year-olds want? And what are their goals and aspirations?
So let's say you're 26, you're just out of college, right? You know that most of your parents, for them it was relatively easy to get a job and get a house after graduation.
So you think at 26 that you have this career, that you kind of have this plan.
Well, at least you have the beginnings of a plan.
Okay.
And there's opportunity for you to make that happen. But now I think most millennials are rather powerless in that. There are not a lot of jobs. The housing market really, really sucks. So you get people who just got out of college, which was useless, and who are in a lot of debt in the US, and then go into jobs at, they have to do like call center jobs or that kind of stuff, because so this isn't
not their career.
Not their career.
They have to just take a job that don't find that satisfying. Okay, so do they have goals, aspirations? Do they want to change the world? Do they have like purpose? Or has that gone away? Or how does that break down?
So this is a thing I write about a lot and I talk about a lot with people, and most people kind of think it's kind of a weird question. Like, what do you care about? What do you value? And then, it's not that you would expect like a clear-cut answer, but yeah, I'm not sure what I've been thinking about. I kind of think this is important, but I think...
When you hang out with graduate students, aren't they passionate about something? I mean, do they care? Do they say they have a purpose?
No, I don't think anyone uses that language. I also really don't. But so the practical things of I just want to get a job and get out of my parents' basements are vastly trumping the more ideological.
That's 98% of it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fair. What about millennials or people who are older who've had 5 to 10 years of work? Do you have any insight into? Do you just get sucked into the machine and keep paying the rent, or do people, in your view, do young people still aspire and want to take time and volunteer or learn or do something about the state of the world that makes it better beyond their own little microcosm?
I think the former option is way more prevalent. So you just get sucked into the machine. And
I hate when that happens.
me too. It's kind of saddening.
I wonder if that really represents, I don't know, people in Asia, people are in the United States.
I think people in Asia are even worse off.
Oh.
So, I mean, I've just seen the thing about the 966 movement in China.
Yeah, the 9 hours a day, 6 days a week. What is it?
9 to 6 days a week.
9 to 6 days a week.
And for them, it's even more. Like you get sucked into the system, and then at some point you get promoted, and then you'll be the guy who can tell other people that they can leave at 6. But I think for them, it's even. I think for these people, the question of what do you care about and what do you value and what do you think is important might even be considered a slightly inappropriate thing to wonder when you're millennial age.
You're not asking that in the interviews. What's your bigger plan?
From what I've read, no.
If we do build a community of young, bright, young, active, forward-leaning, forward-thinking doers who are the future shapers of the world, which might include you, because that's what this is all about. What's next? How do we, first of all, let's say we can upgrade our thinking, because we've talked a bit about that, and learning. Now we want to really make some impact. How will we change institutions or the norms so that we get rid of stupid things like rigorous nonsense, like education and job interviews and so forth?
Change starts with awareness.
Right.
So I think that should be our job.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Let's do a lot of that. But now, beyond that, what about the active doing of changing society? If you're going to look at the next 20 years of your life and the lives of some other forward-leaning people like you, what should we be doing to build change into the system, to build a better system?
So speaking about education,
okay,
because that's the thing I know a little bit about.
Right, and not so much common sense.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's to pick your battles.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, how do we change the institution of education? Let's look at that.
Well, my view about this has become, and I was quite surprised with myself because I'm not really a radical guy, that we should think way more radical than we used to think. So it's not just about changing how many tests students get, or changing from
the curriculum, or
or changing making slight tweaks in the curriculum, or changing from big classes to small classes, or from lectures to MOOCs, or changing. I think we should just take down all systems,
blow it up,
and start from scratch.
All right, what would we do? I mean, let's say that we have a team of incredibly powerful young people like you, and we're going to do it. And you're one of the leaders. There's nobody in charge of anything because we're just a mesh network of change agents. What would you be doing and hoping other people will follow?
You mean if I could redesign an education system, what would that look like? If you could
build the alternative, what would you start building?
I would start building a system where in schools, kids get a lot more freedom to just explore their curiosity and learn the attitude, not of you read a book, make a test, and the learning's done, but see learning as a lifelong process and as an attitude.
What about 4 years of university? What would you do with that? Would you create an alternative to that, or would you try to fit it and say, oh, well, let's make a new 4-year university with a different approach?
Well, I think in the future, the whole point of giving lectures will be obsolete because there will be MOOCs, so that's a term for massive online open courses.
Right.
So that means only the very, very best in the world will give lectures on so Daniel Kahneman is going to lecture to us about cognition research, and it will be online, free for everyone with an internet connection.
Right.
So there's no point in professors giving lectures anymore.
Mediocre lectures. Yeah. If the A lectures are on YouTube, who wants a B lecture in person?
Yeah, exactly. So
Sure.
what the new role of the teacher, I think it's more going to be like a coach or a mentor for students to guide their development, maximize their development. And about the role of university in general, I would say after high school, we should switch to a kind of apprenticeship model.
Okay.
So
work and learn.
yeah. So in the Netherlands we call that a duo model.
Yeah.
So you would have like 2 days of learning and 2 days of working, for example.
Okay.
So think about how radical this is, right? This is super radical, so that you need to realize that. And so the
And this
argument
is not
for
just
that,
for machinists and car mechanics. This is for people going into the world of finance or even
For
education or entertainment or the things that are more white collar. You would do it with an apprenticeship and continuous learning.
yeah, and I think like higher education could be a thing after that, but there would be a minimum on the amounts of years you'd have to have done this. And the argument for that is this. The argument is that you need to have prior work experience to understand why the things you are learning are relevant. Otherwise, I have to study the social psychology textbooks because I'm doing a psychology
I might
undergrad.
need it someday, yeah.
Yeah, and now if you already have the work experience, you're really, you've encountered some problems. You're like, I don't know how to fix this. I need to go and learn how to fix this.
But shouldn't it be just back and forth and back and forth? You learn as you need it and then you're back at work.
Yeah, that would be good too, but I mean,
Earning money, not going into debt, not taking months and months studying something you maybe just had the need for, but that's going to change in another month or so.
Well, I mean, maybe it's conceivable that there are some issues that don't lend themselves to that model.
Okay.
Right. So, but anyway, so if there would be something like university, I'd say it'd be something like this. Like it requires you to have a specific thing you want to learn and not, real life experience to back up why you need this knowledge and why it's a problem for you.
All right. And so you think that would be institutionalized as opposed to, it's just a la carte. It's just out there on YouTube. It's on MOOCs. It's just take it as you need it. One question then would be, what about the certifications? What about the signals? Do you still see those, or do you just say, hey, that's all rigorous nonsense. Let's get rid of that too.
Ideally, I would say that, but I'm not sure whether that's realistic.
Practical.
But ideally, but I know, governments and all these policymakers, they are very afraid of not being able to compare everyone and not being able to guarantee that everyone has ticked certain boxes. So it might be that you cannot avoid or not get rid of some kind of standardization and certification.
Okay, let me ask a hard question about education. What about metrics? What good are metrics? What's the role of metrics in education?
What would be an example?
What do you measure? Mostly we measure through standardized test scores. How do you get a report card and you generate some score or something that says this person is the second in his class, or you're at the top, or you're in a ranked list, or you got this much on your exam? And that's one thing they do, is they compare school to school by comparing those to student test scores.
I think that's complete nonsense. I think so. This is another might be another pretty radical standpoint. I think these metrics, it's not only that we don't need them, I think they do more harm than they do good. And the reason why I think that is this. So here's how that goes, right? So let's take an example, like the metric of at school A, students come out as more, let's pick some metric, like some desirable metric, like they come out as more societally engaged or more active, or
you could measure that somehow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so you just give every school in the country a questionnaire, right? And you let the students take the questionnaire, and then at the end of the day, it turns out that people in that school have answered the questions in such a way that they score higher on the thing we're measuring.
Oh, they can game it?
Well, they can game it, but there's probably not even a thing there being gained. It's just the metric.
Right.
It's not corresponding to anything in reality.
It's just rigorous nonsense.
So what we do with the so why the metrics do more harm than good is because we're measuring a thing that shouldn't be measured, and that then essentially enslaves us, because it becomes all about the metric, because there are a lot of financial and prestige related consequences to how the metric score goes, because of the way the system's set up.
Right.
So
they have an incentive to teach to the test.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's not just useless, it's actively harmful.
Let me change again. It just comes to mind, you've studied psychology. And I believe that most measures of psychological metrics are useless. That there's lots of tests, tons of tests. People make a fantastic living creating these tests. But that, and if you talk to Kahneman and Tyler Cowen and people, they're going to say that the big five are holding up pretty well. Still, the big five is a reasonable assessment of someone's personality or aptitude.
Yeah, so the big five are 5 personality traits, but it gets very interesting when we start to say what that means.
Yes.
But, so a nice acronym to remember by is OCEAN, right?
OCEAN,
so the O is for openness to experience.
All right.
The C is for conscientiousness, so how orderly you are. And the E is for extroversion or introversion.
Right.
So whether you're outgoing or...
You're going this way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or more of the silent type.
Okay.
The E is for agreeableness.
The E is for
the A.
The A.
That's sorry, that was me mistranslating from Dutch. Yeah.
Right.
And the N is for neuroticism or emotional stability.
Right. Okay. And how do you think it's holding up? And what use is it if you somehow knew someone, if you got a card about a coworker that said how they come out on this 5-point scale? It's not necessarily that any of these things is bad or good, right? These are two ends of a spectrum each one, and you can't say that, if you have on the left side of each, that's terrible. There's no real judgment either way, right?
Right.
These are just 5 sliders. Do you suppose it helps? Do you suppose that this is a scoring system we could actually use in companies or with people we interact with to understand them better, to get better results and outcomes?
Yeah, I think it could definitely help, because these factors show up among multiple studies. So what that means is that they are somehow reflective and exhaustively reflective
there's horses coming. Look at that.
Of a personality. And that could make you, if you knew these scores, you could make more accurate predictions on how someone's going to behave.
It would help you interact with other people. Let's let the horses go by and we'll watch them. Hello. Okay, back to the question. I mean, you know about Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs tests, ENFJ, INFP, and so forth. I've read enough papers to realize that that's just worthless. That is not a quality way to score or even pretend to understand people.
Right, so the difference between the big five and ENTJ is that the Myers-Briggs thing is that the Myers-Briggs then goes on to come up with all kind of Freudian
archetypes
and pseudo-scientific explanations of the combination of your scores. But the big five, so here's the difference. So that's why I'm hesitant in answering the question. I'm not sure that it would help us understand a person. But it might help you make predictions about how someone will behave.
That's interesting.
Because the big five doesn't, as opposed to the Myers-Briggs, then go on to give all kind of stories about,
who this person really is deep down.
Yeah. Because that's not, at least it shouldn't do that if it wants to remain scientific.
So it's more about helping predict how that person will react or behave in a given situation.
Yeah, so one confusion that comes up here a lot, and for which it might be helpful, is the difference between introversion and lack of confidence or shyness. So what happens, for example, in education settings sometimes is that actually some persons just really quite introverted, so that means by her nature
Quiet.
she's quiet and these kind of
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that she's insecure. I.e. she has a lack of self-esteem or is ashamed of some things about herself.
She might be a ferocious blogger.
Yeah, exactly. Myself, I'm quite introverted, I think. So if you knew someone's big 5 scores, you might have alternative explanations of behavior that might be more supported and less folk psychology, like, oh, she must be very shy or she must not be very confident.
These are topics I hope we get into a lot more, and I hope we're able to make nice short videos and other pieces of work, learnings that will help people on their path to having a more fulfilling and purposeful life. This is David Siegel and Maarten Van Doorn from Cutting Through the Noise in beautiful Southern Holland. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to our channel. Come to our website for a daily dose of reality. Become a member of our online community and join us here each week for another insightful interview from Cutting Through the Noise.